There's a pirate ship sitting on the Las Vegas Strip, right there, in front of one of the most valuable pieces of real estate in America. A full-sized pirate ship, masts reaching toward the sky, rigging still strung between them, cannons pointed at the boulevard like they're ready to fire. And it does nothing. Just sits there, day after day, year after year, a prop from a show that ended 15 years ago, a relic of an identity, the property abandoned, a monument to a decision no one knows how to undo. Walk past it on the sidewalk, look at it, really look, the wood weathering, the paint fading, the whole thing frozen in time, not maintained like a showpiece, not demolished like a mistake, just existing, waiting for something that never comes. Behind the ship, the lagoon sits still. Buccaneer Bay, they called it. The water that used to explode with pyrotechnics and cannon fire and swinging pirates. Now it's just water, decorative water. Expensive water doing absolutely nothing. This is Treasure Island, or TI, or whatever they're calling it this decade. The property that can't figure out what it is. That stripped away its identity and forgot to replace it with anything. That sits on prime strip real estate literally next door to the Venetian, directly across from Fashion Show Mall, and somehow feels invisible. Today I'm showing you the Treasure Island problem. What this property used to be and why it worked. The spectacle that stopped traffic on Las Vegas Boulevard. The identity so clear that everyone knew exactly what Treasure Island was. How the decision to abandon that identity created a crisis that's never been solved. 20 years of limbo, 20 years of a pirate ship doing nothing, 20 years of we'll figure it out eventually, while eventually never comes. Why being fine on the Strip is actually a death sentence. Why Treasure Island's slow fade might be worse than Excalibur's rot. Why paralysis kills just as surely as decay, just more quietly. And what Treasure Island tells us about what happens when Vegas properties lose their reason to exist. If you're new here, I expose the properties Vegas doesn't know what to do with. Not the dramatic failures that make headlines, not the closures everyone talks about, the stuck ones, the properties trapped in purgatory, not bad enough to close, not good enough to matter, just existing while the Strip evolves around them. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications. Because Treasure Island's problem is spreading, the identity crisis isn't just one property with an empty pirate ship, it's becoming an epidemic. Properties all over the Strip, losing what made them special and having nothing to replace it. Treasure Island is just the most visible example. That ship impossible to miss, that lagoon impossible to ignore, a monument to indecision sitting right there on the boulevard. Let me show you what Treasure Island used to be. What that pirate ship actually meant, what Buccaneer Bay looked like when it was alive. Because unless you understand the identity that existed, the vision, the spectacle, the reason people came, you won't understand how lost this property is without it. This wasn't just another casino, this wasn't just another hotel with a gimmick. This was Steve Wynn at the peak of his powers, creating something that had never existed before. And what's happening to it now isn't just neglect, it's not rot, it's something almost worse. It's forgetting. 1993. Treasure Island opens. Steve Wynn's second masterpiece, right next door to his first, The Mirage. And the scale of ambition is staggering. Buccaneer Bay, a full-scale lagoon carved into the front of the property. 2 massive ships floating in the water, a pirate vessel with tattered sails and skull flags, and a British Royal Navy frigate, pristine and proper, facing each other, ready for battle. And every night, multiple times a night, they fought. Picture it, you're walking the Strip. Maybe it's 1995. Maybe you're a kid, maybe you're dragging your kids. You hear the cannons before you see them. Boom, boom. The crowd is already 5 deep at the railing. You push your way to a spot where you can see. The ships are exchanging fire, actual fire pyrotechnics, blasting from the cannons, explosions rocking the water. A mast on the British ship cracks, starts to fall. Pirates swing from ropes, boarding the enemy vessel. Swords clash, actors tumble into the water. The crowd gasps, cheers, laughs. And then the finale. The British ship takes a fatal hit, starts to sink, actually sinks right there in the lagoon, bow rising into the air as the stern goes under. The pirates celebrate. The crowd erupts. Free, completely free. Every single night, a spectacle that stopped traffic on Las Vegas Boulevard. That made people plan their Vegas trips around showtimes. That gave kids memories they'd carry for 30 years. Inside the property, the commitment was total. Pirate theming everywhere. The skull and crossbones aesthetic, the sense that you'd stepped off the strip and into an adventure. The swashbuckler fantasy fully realized, not half-hearted, not ironic, not embarrassed by itself. Committed. And it worked. God, it worked. Treasure Island printed money. The pirate show became one of the defining images of 1990s Vegas. The property that proved themed spectacle could drive traffic, could fill rooms, could turn a location into a destination. That was Treasure Island. That was the identity. That was the reason to exist. That was Treasure Island, a pirate fantasy with a show that stopped the strip. An identity so clear, so committed, so fully realized that everyone knew exactly what the property was and why you'd go there. The kids watching pirates battle. The parents finally having something to show the family that didn't cost extra. The crowds lined up at the railing, cameras ready, waiting for the ship to sink one more time. That was the magic. That was what worked. Then Steve Wynn sold to MGM. And MGM looked at Treasure Island, at the pirate ships, at Buccaneer Bay, at the families lined up every night, and decided it was old-fashioned. Decided pirates were dated, decided the theming was embarrassing, decided to transform Treasure Island into something more sophisticated, more adult, more nothing, as it turned out. So they stripped it. Changed the name to TI because nothing says sophistication like a meaningless abbreviation. Killed the pirate show. Replaced it briefly with Sirens of TI, a confusing, sexy spectacle that was neither family entertainment nor adult destination. Sirens luring pirates to their doom while tourists wondered what they were watching. That died too. 2013. The lagoon went dark. The ships went silent. Buccaneer Bay became Buccaneer Nothing. And no one, not MGM, not the next owner, not anyone has figured out what to replace it with. The pirate ship still sits there, right now, today. The masts still reach toward the sky, the cannons still point at the boulevard. The whole thing frozen in 1993, waiting for a show that's never coming back. 20 years. 20 years since MGM killed the identity. 20 years of that ship doing nothing. 20 years of one of the best locations on the strip being wasted by a property that forgot what it was. The Treasure Island problem isn't decay, isn't rot, isn't dramatic failure, it's paralysis. A property frozen in time, stuck between what it used to be and what it can't figure out how to become. The ship sits empty, the lagoon sits still, and Treasure Island waits for anyone to finally make a decision. The pirate identity died, the show stopped, the name changed, the theme got stripped away layer by layer until nothing was left but a generic casino with a pirate ship it didn't know what to do with. That was 2003, over 20 years ago. And in those 20 years, Treasure Island has done nothing. Figured out nothing, become nothing. No new identity, no new spectacle, no new reason to exist. Just 2 decades of a property treading water literally and figuratively while the lagoon sits empty and the ships gather dust. Let me show you what 20 years of paralysis looks like. The TI rebrand was supposed to fix everything, was supposed to be the answer. MGM looked at Treasure Island and saw a problem. Families. The pirate show drew families. Families with kids. Kids who don't gamble. Kids who eat chicken fingers and take up space and don't generate the revenue that Vegas actually wants. So they decided to go sophisticated, adult, hip, transform Treasure Island into something the cool crowd would want. Something that would attract the Palms clientele, the hard rock crowd, the young and wealthy who'd spend real money in the clubs and at the tables. They changed the name to TI, just the letters. No meaning, no identity, just initials that could stand for anything or nothing. They updated the marketing, made it sleeker, more modern, tried to shed the pirate image like a snake shedding old skin. And it attracted no one. The hip crowd never showed up. Why would they? TI offered nothing the Palms didn't offer better. Nothing the Hard Rock didn't do more authentically. The rebranding was cosmetic, a name change, and some marketing materials. The property itself was still the pirate resort with the pirate ship, just pretending it wasn't. You can't rebrand your way out of an identity crisis. You can't slap new letters on a building and expect people to forget what it was. Especially when the old identity is still sitting right there in the lagoon. Impossible to miss. The Sirens of TI show tried to split the difference, tried to have it both ways. Keep the ships, keep the lagoon, keep the spectacle, but make it sexy. Women in revealing costumes, sirens luring pirates to their doom, choreographed seduction on the deck of a ship while confused tourists watched from the sidewalk. It was weird. Genuinely weird. Neither family entertainment nor adult spectacle. Too sexy for kids, too silly for adults, too confused for anyone. The tourists who remembered the pirate battle watched the sirens dancing and thought, wait, what is this? What happened to the sinking ship? No one asked for this. No one wanted this. It satisfied no audience because it was designed for no audience. Just a compromise between what used to work and what MGM wished would work. The Sirens show limped along for a few years, then died in 2013, quietly, unmourned, and the lagoon went dark. Picture Buccaneer Bay after the Sirens show ended. The water's still there, the ship's still floating, the infrastructure for a spectacle still intact. And silence, complete silence. No show, no schedule, no crowds gathering at the railing, just an empty lagoon with two ships that no longer had a purpose. The most expensive outdoor venue on the strip, doing absolutely nothing. Tourists walked past and squinted. Wait, wasn't there a show here? I remember there being a show. Why are those ships just sitting there? Is something broken? Is it coming back? Nothing was coming back. Nothing was planned. The lagoon stayed dark, not because of a temporary closure, not because of renovations, not because something better was coming. It stayed dark because no one could figure out what to do with it. The ship sat in the water sat in the lagoon sat on the strip, and Treasure Island sat in limbo, a property that had killed its identity and couldn't find a new one. Then MGM sold. Treasure Island changed hands in 2009 to Phil Ruffin, the same owner who bought Circus Circus. And for a moment there was hope, new ownership, fresh perspective, someone looking at this property without the baggage of past decisions. Maybe someone would finally figure out what to do with Buccaneer Bay. Maybe someone would give those ships a purpose. Maybe someone would solve the Treasure Island problem. That was 2009, 16 years ago. We're still waiting. Phil Ruffin bought Treasure Island for $775 million, a fraction of what it cost to build, a fraction of what that land is worth, a bargain that reflected just how lost the property had become. What did he do with it? He maintained it, kept the lights on, kept the rooms renting, kept the casino operational. The property didn't rot like Excalibur, didn't crumble like Circus Circus. The bones stayed intact. But he didn't solve anything, didn't give Treasure Island a new identity, didn't figure out what to do with Buccaneer Bay, didn't bring back a show, didn't transform the property into something that had a reason to exist. The pirate ship still sits there, 16 years into Ruffin's ownership, still doing nothing, still a monument to an identity that was murdered with no replacement in sight. The rooms are fine, the casino is fine, the restaurants are fine, everything is fine. And fine on the Las Vegas Strip is the most dangerous word there is. Here's what makes the Treasure Island problem so maddening, so frustrating, so inexplicable. The location is incredible. Genuinely, objectively, undeniably incredible. Look at what surrounds this property. The Venetian right next door. One of the most successful, most profitable properties on the entire Strip. Tourists flooding in and out all day, all night, money flowing like the canals inside. Fashion Show Mall directly across the street, endless foot traffic, tourists with shopping bags, families killing time, the kind of pedestrian flow that properties would spend billions to capture. The Wynn just up the street, the North Strip energy that keeps building. Treasure Island sits in the middle of all of it. Dead center of the action, prime real estate, the kind of location that should guarantee success no matter what you do. And Treasure Island wastes it, completely, absolutely. The property feels invisible despite being impossible to miss. Tourists walk past on their way to the Venetian, walk past on their way to the Wynn, walk past on their way to the mall, walk past without a second thought because there's no reason to walk in. No show, no spectacle, no identity, no reason to choose Treasure Island over any other option. Other properties would kill for this spot. Treasure Island has it and can't figure out how to use it. 20 years. 20 years since the pirate identity died. 20 years of limbo. 20 years of a prime strip location being wasted by a property that doesn't know what it is. The ships still sit in Buccaneer Bay. You can see them right now if you walk past. The mast still reaching toward the sky. The rigging still strung. The whole frozen tableau waiting for a show that isn't coming. The infrastructure for a comeback is right there. The stage is built. The water is there. The lagoon exists. The ships exist. All someone would have to do is decide what Treasure Island actually is. Give it a reason to exist. Give tourists a reason to walk in instead of walking past. But no one decides. Year after year, ownership after ownership, nothing changes. The property stays stuck. Not bad enough to close, not good enough to matter, not rotting like Excalibur, not dead like Mirage, just existing, just fine, just slowly becoming irrelevant while the strip evolves around it. The Venetian expands, the Wynn adds attractions, Fashion Show Mall renovates, everything around Treasure Island grows and changes and improves. And Treasure Island stays frozen, the ships stay empty, the lagoon stays dark, the property stays stuck. The Treasure Island problem isn't dramatic. It's not a headline. It's not a crisis that demands immediate attention. It's worse than dramatic. It's a slow fade into nothing, and nothing is exactly what's happening. Year after year, ship after empty ship, lagoon after silent lagoon, 20 years of stuck and counting. Treasure Island is fine. The rooms are acceptable, the casino functions, the restaurants exist, the property operates. Nothing is broken, nothing is rotting, nothing is dramatically, obviously wrong. And that's exactly the problem. That's why the Treasure Island problem might be worse than the Excalibur problem, worse than the properties that are obviously failing, worse than the closures and the collapses and the dramatic deaths. Because fine is invisible. Fine doesn't demand attention. Fine lets you fade away without anyone noticing until you're already gone. Let me show you why fine is fatal on the Las Vegas Strip. On the Strip, you're either a destination or you're not. There's no middle ground, no participation trophy, no credit for showing up. You either give tourists a reason to choose you a spectacle, an experience, a brand, something that makes them say, we have to go there, or you become the place people stay because it was cheap on the booking site. Treasure Island has no reason, no spectacle anymore, no identity, no show, no we have to see this. Nothing that makes someone planning a Vegas trip put Treasure Island on the list. So it competes on price. What else can it do? Without a reason, price is the only differentiator, which means it attracts price-sensitive tourists. The ones sorting by lowest to highest on Expedia. The ones who don't care where they stay as long as it's cheap. The ones who picked Treasure Island not because they wanted to, because it was $89 when the Venetian next door was $300. Price-sensitive tourists spend less. That's what price-sensitive means. Less at the tables, less at the restaurants, less at the bars. Lower revenue per guest across every metric that matters. Lower revenue means less money to invest in the property, less money for the show that might give it an identity, less money for the renovation that might make it a destination, less money for everything that could break the cycle, which means continuing to compete on price, which means continuing to attract price-sensitive tourists, which means continuing to generate lower revenue, which means continuing to have no money to invest. The doom loop for fine properties is slower than for failing properties, but it's just as deadly. You don't collapse, you erode. You don't close, you fade. Year after year, a little less relevant, a little more invisible, a little closer to the day when someone does the math and realizes the land is worth more than the operation. Treasure Island is eroding, has been eroding for 20 years. The erosion is so slow you don't notice it quarter to quarter, but compare 2025 to 2005 and the fade is unmistakable. Here's what haunts Treasure Island. What makes this so frustrating to watch? What keeps the Treasure Island problem from being just another strip tragedy? The solution is obvious. Everyone can see it. It's sitting right there in Buccaneer Bay. The infrastructure already exists, the ships exist, the lagoon exists, the water exists, the stage is literally built, has been built for 30 years. Bring back a show, any show, something that gives this property a reason to exist. something that uses the best outdoor venue on the strip, something that makes tourists stop and watch instead of walking past. The solution is right there, obvious, available, waiting. But it doesn't happen. Year after year, owner after owner, the ships sit empty. The obvious solution stays unimplemented, and Treasure Island stays stuck. Bring back the pirate show, or create a new show, or any show. The infrastructure is literally sitting there waiting. Yes, it would cost money. Of course it would. Running a nightly spectacle isn't cheap. You need performers, stunt people, actors, technicians. You need pyrotechnics. You need maintenance on the ships, the rigging, the mechanical systems that make things sink and swing and explode. You need insurance. You need a production team. Tens of millions to relaunch, millions per year to operate. Real money, serious investment. But what's the alternative? What's the plan, if not this? Continued erosion, slow fade into complete irrelevance, a prime strip location wasted indefinitely while the pirate ship becomes more weathered every year? Competing on price forever while the Venetian next door prints money? Other properties invest in spectacle. Bellagio maintains the fountains that show runs multiple times every night, has for over 25 years, costs a fortune to operate. Worth every penny because it makes Bellagio a destination. The Mirage maintained the volcano until the day it closed. The Venetian pays gondoliers to sing in fake canals. The Wynn has the Lake of Dreams. The Sphere cost $2 billion to become the most visible spectacle on the Strip. Free outdoor shows make properties destinations. That's proven. That's not theory. Bellagio proved it. Mirage proved it. The original Treasure Island proved it better than anyone. The bones are right there. The lagoon, the ships, the location. Everything Treasure Island needs except the will to actually become something again. Phil Ruffin is in his late 80s. The property will change hands eventually. Maybe soon, maybe not, but eventually. And when it does, new ownership will face the same choice every owner has faced for 20 years. The same question that's never been answered. What is Treasure Island? New ownership could finally solve it, could invest, could bring back a show, could give those ships a purpose and that lagoon a reason to exist. Or new ownership could do what Ruffin has done, what MGM did before him. Maintain, extract, wait. Let the ship sit empty for another decade while the property fades further into irrelevance. Or, and this is the outcome that feels increasingly likely, new ownership could look at the math and decide the property isn't worth saving, decide the land is worth more than the operation, decide to close Treasure Island, demolish the castle, tear down the ships, fill in the lagoon, and build something new. Something that actually has an identity, something designed for what Vegas is now, not what Vegas was in 1993. 3 possibilities for Treasure Island, 3 paths forward, 3 ways this ends. Future 1, revival. Someone invests, brings back a show, maybe the Pirates, maybe something new, gives the property an identity, uses that incredible location to actually become a destination again. The lagoon comes alive, the ships have purpose. Tourists stop walking past and start walking in. Treasure Island becomes what it was, a reason to visit, not just a place to stay. Possible. Would require tens of millions in investment. Would require vision. Would require someone believing in what this property could be, instead of accepting what it is. Not happening under current ownership. Maybe under the next. Future 2, sale and transformation. Ruffin sells. New owner looks at the property and decides Treasure Island as a concept is done. The pirate ship aesthetic is dated. The lagoon is a liability. The whole thing needs to go. Demolition. The ships come down, the lagoon gets filled in, the castle towers disappear from the skyline. A new resort rises, sleek, modern, designed for contemporary Vegas. Something with a rooftop pool and a celebrity chef and a nightclub. Something that pretends the pirates never existed. Treasure Island becomes a memory, a Wikipedia entry, a remember when conversation for people who visited in the 90s. Future 3, continued limbo. Nothing changes. The status quo extends indefinitely. The property persists in its current state for another 5 years, another 10, another 20. Fine, functional, forgettable. Slowly eroding while tourists walk past on their way to properties that give them a reason to walk in. The ships sit, the lagoon stays dark, the property stays stuck, year after year after year, until something finally forces a decision. The most likely future? Continued limbo until it isn't, until the math forces someone's hand, until Phil Ruffin is gone and the estate has to decide, until the erosion reaches a tipping point and fine becomes not fine enough. None of those futures are good. Think about it. Revival requires investment no one has made in 20 years. Transformation means the end of Treasure Island entirely. Limbo means more of the same, more fading, more erosion, more wasted potential. That's what killing your identity does. That's what abandoning your reason to exist creates. A situation where every path forward is worse than what could have been. If MGM hadn't killed the pirate show, if someone had invested in the 90s aesthetic instead of running from it, if the Sirens compromise had never happened, Treasure Island could have a future. Instead, it has these three options: revival that won't happen, demolition that erases history, or limbo that slowly bleeds the property dry. No good endings, just different ways of losing. The Treasure Island problem is paralysis, is a property that killed its identity and never recovered, is 20 years of limbo on prime real estate, is fine when fine means fading. The ships still sit in Buccaneer Bay, the most visible reminder on the strip of what happens when you abandon your identity without building a new one, a monument to indecision, a landmark without a purpose. Treasure Island isn't rotting like Excalibur, isn't dying dramatically like Mirage did, it's just stuck, existing without thriving, operating without mattering, occupying space that could be so much more. The pirate show stopped, the identity died, and no one in 20 years has figured out what comes next. The lagoon that used to explode with cannon fire sits still. The ships that used to battle sit silent. The crowds that used to line the railing 5 deep don't gather anymore. And Vegas watches, another property fading, another landmark becoming irrelevant, another opportunity wasted while the owners wait for someone else to make a decision. The ships sit empty, the property waits, the future stays unwritten. The Treasure Island problem is solvable, the solution is obvious, the infrastructure is ready, the location is perfect. All it would take is someone deciding that Treasure Island matters, that it's worth investing in, that the pirate ship should do something instead of nothing. But no one decides, and so nothing happens. 20 years of stuck and counting. Hit subscribe to track the stuck properties. I'm watching the ones in limbo, the Treasure Islands. The properties that aren't failing dramatically enough for headlines but are fading into nothing year by year. The slow deaths that no one talks about. Drop a comment. Do you remember the pirate show? Did you ever see it? Have you stayed at Treasure Island recently? What would you do with Buccaneer Bay if you owned the property? What show would you put on those ships? Because that lagoon is sitting there. Those ships are sitting there. One of the best outdoor venues on the strip, doing absolutely nothing, waiting for someone to finally make a decision. The Treasure Island problem is solvable. That's the tragedy. It's not hopeless. It's not beyond repair. The bones are there. The location is there. The opportunity is there. Someone just has to care enough to take it. But year after year, no one does. The ships sit empty, the lagoon sits dark, and Treasure Island stays stuck in the past while the future passes it by. I'll see you in the next one.